So, welcome, lovely souls. Thank you for joining us today on the Voice Podcast. I have a very beautiful soul, Ken Anderson, with me today, and we literally touched base through LinkedIn. It was something that you put out there, Ken, that just made me go, I want to speak to this person. I want to hear him. I want to hear his story. And I could feel the passion and the love that was coming through those words. And just before I hit the play button or record button, we were saying how much you prefer talking and speaking, but your words also do hold a lot of love and passion behind it. So I just wanted to share that now and just come on and just start talking. We've just done this beautiful randomness of picking an oracle card.
Yeah, we have, haven't we?
I've surprised myself, to be honest, but I'm just going to roll with it and think, fuck it, we're just going to do whatever, see what comes out and just flow.
Be fluid, be fluid.
Yeah, and it's one of these Kali cards. So Kali, goddess Kali, I'll just explain for people. She's like the goddess of fire. She's the dark feminine. She takes down any shit, basically. She burns. She's the death, the rebirth, which is interestingly because your phoenix rises, and it's the power of the fire, but it's fire with love, not fear. Because fear and fire, too much of it can just destroy everything. Whereas contained conscious fire is actually really purifying. And this is what we're going to come into with your journey, Ken, in terms of how you've literally taken yourself from the rock bottom to come up. And I think it's just going to be so inspiring. But I'm going to read these words of what came through on this card, and then we'll just see where we go as we explore that. So she wields the holy sword of divine severance, empowering the soul in radical letting go. She instills the courage to bear the pain of loss and the wisdom to realize the secret blessings that can only arise when we embrace change. When our strength of will may falter, she intervenes to ensure we do not sabotage our ultimate fulfillment and spiritual progress. She will not allow our souls to be ensnared in any kind of deception or trapped in fear. She is the liberator, and her sword clears the path, revealing truth. And her word, Khadgiga, in Sanskrit means sword. So let's just see where we go with that, because how does that resonate with you, Ken, right now?
Certainly some of it does in regards to almost like using the fire and rising up again, and the path of truthfulness, I think, was something you spoke about there as well, which my policing background, that's what you do, isn't it? You fight through everything to try and find the truth. And my own personal story, fighting through all the clutter in my head to try and find my truth and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to push forwards with my life, rather than letting the fear consume me. So yeah, it was weird hearing it, because it does resonate a bit, that's for sure.
Yeah, and just before we came on, we were talking about fear, and I was saying how I've used Kali in my work for myself to clear out fear, and how it's a good thing to do that, to use fear that has blocked us from being our true self. And quite rightly, you said, well, fear is a really good thing.
Yeah.
For you.
In the right context. Right context and under control, it's a powerful thing if you can harness it. When I was in firearms, you do have that fear, you do have that adrenaline when you're going into a job, and if you're not fearful about what could happen, you're not thinking about what can happen, you're not really consciously in that moment, and fear heightens all your senses. It's a natural instinct, fight or flight, but being able to harness that can be a real strength. But it's got to be in the moment, because if you allow fear to take over, then once that moment has gone, once you've utilized the power of that fear, it then continues and it consumes you and it overpowers you. And that's when fear becomes a really negative influence on you. But if you can harness, almost switch it on, switch it off to a certain degree, because it's got to be natural, it's got to be intrinsic. But if you can harness that power and know that it is you, it is natural, it is okay to have fear, but you need to just be strong with it in controlling it. It's a powerful, powerful tool, not something to be afraid of, that's for sure.
No, I think as you're saying that, I feel the word conscious, to be conscious of the fear, and then
Mm.
you're kind of in control with it. You're moving with it rather than it subconsciously coming through and taking over. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, explain if you want to, just invite you really to talk about you and your journey, what brought you here, and yeah, just share the message. Just yeah, tell me more about
Okay.
you, please.
um, right. Well, my name's Ken Anderson, and for 20 years, almost 20 years, I was a police officer, and I absolutely loved it. There was no feeling quite like it for me, you know, serving the public, protecting people, um, making a difference every single day to people's lives. And I was, for a large chunk of my career, a firearms officer, a firearms support officer. And again, to me, that was the pinnacle of policing. That was such a important role to do, such a trusted role to be able to do. And it was something that I took immense pride in because it was a really, really hard area to get into. But life's got a funny way of taking you down different paths, sometimes when you least expect it. And while I was at work, I was involved in a serious road traffic accident. Vehicle I was in was hit by a stolen vehicle. And as a result, I injured my back. So upon returning from my time off, I was moved into, excuse me, I was moved into an office role, taken off frontline duties. And I started to feel that my sense of identity had gone, that I wasn't who I was. My mental health started to crumble. My motivation was just almost non-existent. I was not enjoying the role that I was in at all. I started pulling away from the people that were closest to me, and outwardly, I'd I looked like I was excelling. I'd moved into a training role, and I was coming across as competent and charismatic and really, really able and good at my job. But inside, I was falling apart, absolutely falling apart. I lost count of the amount of times that I'd take my lunch in on a Monday, put it in the fridge, and then on a Friday, I'd take it out, throw it in the bin, and go home because I was just hiding away. I wasn't speaking
Mm.
to anyone. I wasn't doing anything. And eventually, I was advised, maybe have some time off work from a supervisor, and that really opened up the darkness for me in a way because
Okay.
I had more time to think about what was going on. And in July of last year, I ended up writing notes to my family and dropping the kids off. They were 2 and 4, dropping them off at nursery and school, and then just driving out to the coast. And I knew exactly what I was going to do when I got there. And I remember driving and tears streaming down my face, saying, "Just put your foot on the brake. Stop. You know what's going to happen when you get there. Don't do it."
Mm.
But I was overpowered. I couldn't stop myself. And I get to the coast and I sat there for hours, battling my thoughts. Um, and then all of a sudden, everything just became peaceful. Everything became clear. I was looking out, and it's almost like the clouds parted and a ray of sunshine came through. The waves suddenly just sounded so much quieter than they were. The seagulls and other birds just slowed down flying. And I felt this wave, literally from head to toe, of peace and tranquility wash over me. And I felt at peace for the first time in a long time. I felt at peace. And I knew what I was going to do, and I was okay with it. And so I started to climb over the railing. And I didn't know that there was a woman behind me, an old woman. And she just said, "Are you okay?" And my first thought was, I can't do it in front of her. You know, spent 20 years of my life protecting people, shielding them from all these kinds of, I can't do that. And I stepped back down. And that was a real pivotal moment for me. You know, that small little piece of communication that stopped me in my tracks was my Phoenix Rises moment, in effect. You know, that it was that moment on that cliff when I had that small little, not even a conversation. It was just communication, because conversation, I talk, you talk. Communication was very much, she talks, I actively listened. And because of that, it just helped almost snap me out of what I was about to do. And from there, I did everything I could to try and get better. Medication, counselling, psychotherapy, you know, you name it. Andy's Man Club, brilliant. I don't care if you're not allowed to endorse things or not. I am endorsing Andy's Man Club. It is a fantastic tool. And if anyone's feeling
This
like
is
I did,
literally a free platform to say.
go for it. Right, Andy's Man Club.
Yeah.
I am all about Andy's Man Club. It is brilliant. And that started to build a platform for my recovery. All of those little things, all of those little tools in my toolbox. And the one thing that made the real difference to me was that one simple question, that one moment of communication that resonated with me. And that's why I'm here today, to be able to talk about what I do. And so after that, I started researching about communication in the workplace. And I realized that a lot of my core skills that I have, critical thinking, crisis management, problem solving, teamwork, and communication, all of these skills from policing, they are really powerful tools to transition when you talk about well-being, because a lot of businesses, they're just bothered about the bottom line, aren't they? Quite often, well-being seen as a tick box exercise. But for me, actually no, because if you've got good employees, then who are happy and motivated and present at work, that's going to drive performance. That's going to get a cultural buy-in in your business. So I ended up setting up a company called Phoenix Rises, and this is me now, making this second life for me. I'm still dealing with a lot, don't get me wrong, and I don't think that I will ever stop. I think for me to be naive enough to say, here's a 10-step program to your wellness, that's not me.
No, it's not
I
true.
think,
No.
no, I think
There's
that
steps, but it's not the only ones. Yeah.
100%, you know, people will talk about, if you're an alcoholic, you are always an alcoholic. Okay. It's just that you are not drinking alcohol. You stop drinking alcohol. Okay. So you're a recovering alcoholic. And people always say, I'm an alcoholic, even though they might not have touched a drop for 20 years. And for me, I feel like that with my journey. And it's different for everyone. I get that. But for me, I feel like I will always have this. But I have built a toolbox of different tools that work for me. And it might be that on a Monday, I use one tool. On a Tuesday, that tool doesn't work for me. So I need to do something else. And it's about having that empowerment myself to be able to draw on what I need is helping me get through it. Because if you rely too much on other people all the time, then you're constantly looking for the reassurance, the validation, and the help, and you're not helping yourself.
Mm.
And one thing that I'm really passionate about is empowering the people to build their own toolboxes so that, touch wood, they don't need to ever speak to me or see me again or have anything to do with me, because they can be powerful in themselves to be able to manage what they're going through. And it might sound idealistic or whatever, but if I
No,
could change one person or 100 people, it matters not to me. I, I, I spent an entire 20 years policing. It's always about helping people. And 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with really awful jobs where you don't help people and you're almost mopping up or just crime recording a lot of the time. Someone gets burgled, but the burglars have worn gloves and there's no forensics, there's no CCTV, there's no nothing. Yet people still expect this miracle. Oh, we'll go off and find them. We've got this really grainy footage of someone in dark clothing. It doesn't work.
no.
But yeah, then you get that one time that you get to a job and you catch the burglars in the house, and it makes the 10 that you didn't worthwhile. So yeah, if I can help one person, then I'm happy.
That's beautiful. No, and you are, and that's the thing. You probably don't realize how much you are helping. I think sometimes we think we need to have these massive grand gestures to be thinking we're helping, but we don't know. It's like that woman. Does she know exactly that lady that saved you on that day on that cliff? Does she really know? She probably just went back and looked at her groceries and and never really realized the impact by her being there at that very moment for you, and then how your impact is then for others. And I think it's not about your followers, it's not about these whole kind of things that looks like great measurement. It's not at all. It can be your children.
Vanity metrics.
Yeah, it could just be,
Oh no.
yeah, and it's huge. And I don't think we ever really understand that. And you've touched upon so many things. But the first thing that really was coming to me, well, one of them actually, was what is it that you think you're still carrying? You talk about alcoholics keeping that label of themselves. Maybe they're not at some point, but like I say, it's something they're working with. What is it that you feel like you're carrying?
That's a big question. That's a big question. At the moment, I feel like, for me, my depression and anxiety, or whatever it is that you want to call it, I was speaking to someone the other day trying to describe it to them. And for me, it isn't about having a fear of, oh, bad things always happen to me. There's always something. Okay. For some people, that is how their mindset works. And that's fine. But for me, I'm generally quite positive about things, and I put myself out there and I've got confidence in going into different situations. My issue stems from a self-loathing, a hatred of self, um, not not liking who I am as a person, but a deep core dislike of me inside. So that enhances a lot of negative thoughts. So even when something good happens, I see the negative in it more. So that's where I'm at with mine. So I'm very much dealing with liking myself more, you know, and having a bit more value and self-worth in myself and what I do, rather than having to worry if somebody else values me or somebody else thinks highly of me. I'm trying to work on, actually, I don't need that.
Mm.
Because I was always the person in my group of friends who, I'm a big Leeds United fan, right? Don't hold that against me, but I'm a big Leeds United fan. And I would always sort out all of the tickets for my friends and make sure that everyone knew where to go and where to meet. And I'd be logging on, buying the ticket, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then last season, we got to the playoff final. So it's a really big game, possibly going to get promoted. And I sorted out all the tickets and I spent hours doing it. And I tried to arrange to meet everyone for a drink before the game. And no one did. And these were my friends. And they had train delays. They had a different route. I was coming from a different part of London at the time because I'd stayed over the night before. They were traveling down from York, all this kind of stuff. But to me, I took that personally. And it wasn't a personal thing. It was just how it worked. Could they have made more effort? Yeah. Was I putting too much emphasis on relying on them to make me feel better? Yes, I was. So learning from that and taking a bit of a step back are things that I'm doing at the moment and I'm trying to learn from. But yeah, it's certainly the self-worth element is what I struggle with the most.
No, I can feel that, and I can hear that, and I can see it, and I recognize it in myself. And it's this, for me, it's been that journey of self-sabotage to self-love, and still going, which is what I see when I'm working on people. It's ultimately when we love and accept ourselves for our imperfections or whatever we think is, but our uniqueness. But that, for
Yeah.
me, that's come from, you know, a lot of it was childhood, but also ingrained patterns that seem to go through, especially body dysmorphia. It's that a lot of women have that because we're always questioning what we look like, if we're good enough. I mean, my fear is, am I enough? It's always my question. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? And it's
And you know what? On that point
mm,
about body dysmorphia, I would actually say that a lot of men suffer from that as well.
right.
I would say
You
that there
don't
are a
hear
lot
that
of
though. You
men.
don't hear that, do you, so much?
No, because it's not, men don't talk, right? Which is a whole different topic. But men don't talk about that kind of thing. And you look at dad bods, okay?
Dad bod.
There's a term dad bod, okay?
Okay.
How's that going to make men feel? Okay, is it actually empowering, slightly away, not chiseled, all this lot, or is it making people go too far the other way and going, actually, as a man, we need to embrace the fact that we're overweight and this and that? Because I know quite a few people who are men who suffer from body dysmorphia, but there's not really anyone to talk to about it. There's no outlets for them. So, and like you said, a lot of women suffer from it. So the men have this stigma of, oh, well, it's a woman's type of problem. It's not a man
Mm,
type of problem. I mean, could you imagine a man getting breast cancer?
mm, yeah.
How would they talk about that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's interesting what you're saying there, because it's for me it feels that total kind of, we're just questioning ourselves every time. We're questioning our power, our uniqueness, and you know, when we're completely fixated on what we look like, we're internalizing rather than sometimes simply just looking outside of us.
mm.
So it's always a disempowerment when you're criticizing oneself, whichever way that is.
And I think that one of the important things as well is that everybody is unique to a large degree, but not everyone is alone. And there is a difference between being unique and being alone. And a lot of the time, people feel that their uniqueness makes them alone, when in truth, their uniqueness actually makes them part of a bigger group of people. It's just that they don't see that and understand it or accept it because communication isn't there to be able to empower people to talk about certain things. So if you had a man who was suffering from breast cancer, he would feel alone. He would feel that his uniqueness is very much alone. And I don't know the figures on this at all, but I would imagine that there are thousands of people in the UK who were suffering from male breast cancer. Tens of thousands, maybe. I don't know the figures.
It's never
You're not alone.
spoken about, is it? At all.
But you're not alone.
Mm.
You're unique, but you're not alone. And I think it's really, really important for people to remember that. That no matter how you feel about yourself, you're not alone. You've just got to find the right channels of communication and the right methods of communication, and it will just open things up for you. And I'm a firm believer in that.
And I think to do that, it's letting go of the shame. I think shame is what holds us down. Shame actually has a frequency of like 30 hertz. It's so low. It's the same frequency of lead. So, it literally will hold you down, and it's what keeps you from being able to voice, to be able to communicate, because we fear the judgment, the exclusion, everything that...
And the stigma.
The taboo of it all, yeah. And so yeah, I think doing what we are doing and what you're trying to do is about having that voice, having that communication, saying that you're not alone, that you're not alone in carrying these thoughts that are going around in your head, and which will make you feel like you're alone. However, the journey is about finding that love within yourself, that self-acceptance, that ultimately you don't need it from anyone else. And this was something that was coming up for me recently. It's like we're all trying to be self-sufficient in terms of our lives, like all owning our own money and food and cooking. We used to be much more of a community as people, hundreds of years ago, if not even more longer than that.
Yeah.
So we're not meant to be self-sufficient. We're supposed to be self-reliant in our own emotions to be able to manage that and process that, because whatever we want from other people is actually what we need to give to ourselves. If someone, your friend's saying there was that feeling like you needed to be, I don't know, heard or valued or respected a little bit more, that's what you need to give to yourself. They've literally held a mirror up and said, this is what I need. But it's not from other people. It's what I need to give myself. And you change that dynamic. And that's what we do from our emotional, but from a physical perspective, we're not meant to be self-sufficient. We're supposed to be a community to hold one another. And we need to start going back that way in the ways that we can do best, like what we're doing right now.
100%. And it's a really good point that you make about just giving, just being positive, because that in itself is rewarding. How many times have you given a child a present or given a family member a present and you're actively there watching? At Christmas they could have opened 10 different presents, but you're watching for the one that you bought them to see how they react, because you will get joy from watching them get joy. And people seem to forget that you can help other people and empower yourself at the same time. I always remember my dad when I was a kid talking, and he'd use this analogy of two tables filled with people, and there were really, really long spoons on the table. And on the first table, everyone's trying to feed themselves with these really long spoons, and they can't, and the food's going everywhere, and they're all thin and emaciated, and they're not thriving. And on the second table, the spoons are really long, but people are feeding each other. And it's a lot easier to feed someone else with this long spoon. And they're all full, they're talking, they're happy because they're helping other people. Now, I'm not saying walk around with long spoons and start spoon feeding people in the street or whatever, but the ideology behind it,
Yeah.
can't get my words out there.
That's quite right.
It's the same. Help people and you will help yourself. What goes around comes around. Whatever terminology you want to do or want to think about, if you want to help yourself, try and help someone else. And it could be the smallest little thing. If you're really, really depressed and you're having a really, really down day and you've just about managed to drag yourself out to the shops that in itself is sometimes a win. But if you see someone struggling to pick something off the top shelf, help them and focus then on that. I did something nice for that person today.
Mm.
How will you not feel better about yourself? How will your self-worth not increase by knowing that you helped someone do something?
Yeah, I mean, that can
Extrapolate
be,
that.
yeah, I mean, see, they talk about that as being unconditional love. So we talk about love being something that's only for people that are close to us. Whereas actually a lot of time that love can get very constrained and actually conditional, because when we're given love, ultimately we want love back. So there's still like a condition attached to that. Whereas helping somebody, a stranger, like someone falls over and you go and help them, you don't want anything from them, but you feel the joy of being able to help that person. And that's unconditional love. So we need to really unwind what we think love is, because love can be manipulated to, and it's without even us knowing about it. And when
Yeah,
we're pouring love to people, and ultimately because we might be pouring love because we want it back, it's still a condition. And often when we're giving, we also need to be able to allow ourselves to receive and know that we're worthy to receive. I feel like you're a massive giver,
yeah, and
huge
I think,
giver. It's like, you,
yeah, but that's
mm,
what I've done all my life. You know,
mm,
my entire life has been a case of missing family events because you're rostered on to do this. You know, put in the public first, and oh yeah, you're paid to do that. That's what your job is. It doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. It doesn't mean that you're not sad about missing a Christmas or because you've got to work. And then don't worry, I'm doing this 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, so I'll be home for 4. But just to be safe, put tea on the table for 5. And then at 5 to 3, you're arresting someone that's had a big domestic, and you've got to stay on till 7, 8, 9.
mm.
Yeah, but you're getting paid overtime for that. I don't want the overtime.
Yeah, I
I
want the
wanted to be
time
with
with
my
kids.
family.
Mm,
So I think boundaries is quite important to have when you are not not reliant on love, but when it's a big part of who you are as a person. And like I was saying before about the Leeds tickets and going to the final, all this, since I I put in place a boundary on what I was willing to do, I'm still giving, I'm still helping out, sort out ticket, but I'm not doing it to the detriment of me. And my friends are still my friends.
mm.
They're still exactly the same as they were before. There's no change. So it's finding that balance of,
Yeah,
and by not doing too much, I feel better in myself because all of a sudden, actually, I've got a spare hour now where I'm not having to try and source some tickets. I'm actually able to do something for me. So I've sorted out the tickets. I can't sort the others out. I'll leave them to sort it. I'm going to go for a walk and take the dog out.
perfect. I mean, boundaries is like the fundamental when it comes to health and well-being. It's boundaries and discernment, and the fact that you've recognized that actually, no, I'm not going to make myself feel like that. I've got this power to decide what time I'm going to allocate to this. And then from doing that, you're not feeling resentful
Mm,
towards people that you ultimately really care and love about. And it's actually by putting that boundary, you've suddenly created a healthier relationship, but also with yourself. It's incredible.
yeah. And it's a more balanced relationship because it's not all one sided and it doesn't feel like it's all one sided like it did before. And all of a sudden, my mindset started changing a bit where I'm not craving that, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. The positive feedbacks, the pats on the back, and all this. It's actually just a lot more natural and fluid. And it took a lot of trial and error. Don't get me wrong.
Oh
And
God, yeah. No one's got a manual
people,
for this.
no. And
No.
this is the thing. Anybody that's listening to this needs to remember this as well. There is no manual. Okay. As much as we are all humans, we are all so intrinsically different. And it's about having that. I'm a massive advocate of having that toolbox. of different things that you can draw on to help you at different times, be it at work, be it at home, be it while you're alone out on a dog walk, or whatever it is. You've got to have a variety of different things, because if you're relying on one thing alone, oh, I've got this 10-step program that I paid loads of money for, and it's
And then
probably
you
not
don't have the
gonna
time to do it. So then you feel like there's something wrong with you. And then you feel like, then you give yourself a hard time for not doing it, because let's face it, we're all frigging overwhelmed right now. Like the
help.
world is like intense. And we're still neurologically catching up from COVID and the intensity that happened and rattled through our nervous system. Everybody's overwhelmed. I mean, I don't know if there's many people that can look at their inbox and think, oh my God, it's just too much. We are at that state of saturation. So yeah, it's making those tiny steps, even if it's just to choose, I'm just going to breathe for 5 minutes. I don't need to go anywhere. I can just
Yeah,
consciously just breathe. And
and as well, it can, if you are so focused on following a 10-step program and it doesn't work on, it works on a Monday, but then it doesn't work on your Tuesday, it amplifies your feelings of, oh, I'm a failure. It works for everyone else, but it's not working for me. I am more broken than everyone else. I am struggling more than everyone else. It's me, it's me, it's me. It's
yeah.
not.
Hmm.
It's just that wasn't the right tool for you at that time. Okay. You wouldn't take an aspirin for a broken leg.
No.
Okay. You need when you've got a broken leg, you need a plaster cast put on it. When you've got a headache, you don't need a plaster cast on your head. You need an aspirin. So
Yeah.
it's finding the right things to draw on at the right time. And mental well-being, mental health, whatever it is that you want to call it, it matters not. It's you and how you're feeling. That requires a plethora of different things, from physical to mental to the well-being aspects, the emotional resilience, whatever it is. You need to be able to draw on a lot of different things, and you're not a failure just because one doesn't work. You're actually learning and growing and empowering yourself by going, that worked on that occasion, so I'm going to lock that away now, so that when I'm next feeling like that, that's what I'm going to use. However, I've seen this other thing, which is going for a dog walk. So I did that, and that actually helped today.
Mm.
So dog walk didn't work. I'm still feeling down. The other thing that I tried doesn't work. Right, I'm going to try something else. And you start building and growing. And
Yeah.
there is help and support out there for it. And it's just trusting the process. It's a long process. Believe me, it's a long
Yeah,
process.
I know
But
it's a long process, and it's having, like you say, a toolkit, a foundation to touch to. But it's if you could, this is what I say. There's two sayings I've sort of said, right? You're breaking free, not breaking down. So if you can actually have that terminology, thinking or you're shifting your shite, not losing it. And it's
yeah,
actually, if we can, it's the miracle is this perspective on things. If we can see something completely different, have a different perspective. So if we feel like we're breaking down, maybe we need to look at it as actually we're breaking free from old thought patterns that no longer serve us purpose or joy. However, if we're not conscious of that, it just becomes this constant cycle. We have a thought, we have an emotional response, which then comes back up viscerally through the body, and the brain goes, well, that's my truth. So you constantly got this neural pathway that is shit, that's constantly making you feel crap, not worthy, not good enough. And it may have happened in your lifetime experiences. So your body is going, and your mind's going, that's my truth. But when these other things are coming up, it's actually saying to you, it's not. This is the crap that you're holding. This is the mirror. Break that pattern. But you can only do that when you become conscious of it. So if someone can go, look, I'm not breaking down, I'm breaking free. What is it that I'm breaking free from? What are the bullshit? What's the belief systems that has me feel like this? Because actually, my real truth, if you think of a baby, you're beautiful, you're pure, you're joy, you're just absolutely gorgeous, right? What happens? So that is our truth, love, joy, and peace. I get quite woo-woo and spiritual, but that is who we really are. We're actually, science is coming to it that we're light beings. So all this other crap that we've got going on is just fear, old base systems that is blocking us from being our true self. So if we can literally go, I'm breaking free, not breaking down, and try and ask those questions, what is it that's trying to break free? What's the patterns of you, the narrative that you have for yourself that no longer makes me happy? And I
Yeah.
choose something else.
And you use the term about babies and how pure they are and things like that. I'm sure that I read somewhere that there's only actually two innate fears that babies have, which is loud noises and falling. Everything else is inherent learned behavior, in effect. And you could have a baby and a spider could crawl across its face and it wouldn't be bothered.
Mm.
Yet people develop arachnophobia through different stimulus throughout their lives cropping up. And there is no quick fix with anything. If you think how long it's taken you to get to the point that you are at where you are feeling really or for me, standing on the edge of that cliff, that wasn't 6 months, that wasn't 6 years, it was probably a lot longer than that, and that is a lot of learning to unlearn, to
Yes.
move forwards. And it's a slow process. So you take the small wins, you take the little baby steps, you find solace in being open and honest and transparent with those around you. And you find that you're not alone. And that little handhold moment where all of a sudden someone just holds that little hand on your heart and goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm with you as well." That means so much
Mm.
because you sort of go, right, it's not in my head. I'm not that person. And it helps reinforce. I'm a big believer in facts versus thoughts. So when you're feeling down, something's going wrong. Is it a fact or is it a thought?
Mm.
Because all my friends hate me. They're really upset. Right? Is that a fact or is it a thought? Well, I'm sure they do because they've read my message, but nobody's replied. Okay. Well, at the moment, it's still a thought because until they say, "We hate you, we've fallen out with you, we don't want to be your friend anymore," it's in your head. You're thinking that. Tough mindset to try and shift. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong, okay? For
Oh yeah,
someone that
because
suffers with it.
that voice,
Anxiety,
yeah, that voice is
but
there and it's so bloody powerful.
just chip away.
Mm.
Little and often, just chip away. And that's why what I what I do with my business and things like that isn't about fixing the end goal. It's about speaking to people early on when they're first starting to get that little bit of overwhelm. That if you can break down barriers to communication at that point, then you're not getting into the learned behavior stage. And that means that moving forwards and being more um, present and positive and your performance improve, all this kind of stuff, that is so much easier to achieve rather than when someone reaches breaking point and the sergeant turns around and goes, "I think you need a few days off." Because by that point, it's too late. There's
Yeah.
not, it's a long road back from that point.
Yeah. And as you're saying that now, it's brought me back to that feeling of the culture, as from your experience, is how you were talking about the Christmas scenario of you're always putting other people first as a role, like even your life, you're putting ahead to save somebody else's. I mean, how does that go deeply in the ingrain of like you're not as worthy? Somehow you are the one that will lose your life and somebody else is saved. Why is their life more important than yours? I understand why you're doing that, but somewhere in that psyche, you're prepared to lose a life for a stranger.
Yeah.
And it's like the worthiness, and that comes back to being able to receive. So it feels that culture is possibly feeding the stress and the mental.
Oh, 100%. But not everyone that listens to this is going to be a police officer that has that
Mm.
same life experiences. So they might not be able to relate to it. So I try and think of me as a person. Okay. I'm the eldest of three. Okay. Got two younger brothers. So for me growing up, my parents were, don't forget to look after your little brother. Be nice to your little brother. They're younger than you. You need to set an example for your young. All of it, perfectly natural, perfectly nice. Parents both together, no broken homes, no nothing. But you extrapolate that from a young age across 10, 20, 30 years, you've got to look after those that need your help. You've got to put their needs above yours. You've got to take the higher ground, the more that's going to affect and mold who you are as a person. So everybody has their own little path that has led them to where they are, and embrace it sometimes, because that nature that I had growing up of looking out for other people, looking out for my siblings, putting their needs first, meant that I could be a police officer for as long as I was. And I could care passionately about strangers,
Mm,
deeply care about putting strangers' needs above my own, which is what people want the police to do,
mhm,
to go above and beyond. When there's danger, everyone's running away, they want police officers to run towards it.
mm,
So I can't negate my upbringing in that respect and go, oh, it was so bad, I wish that that hadn't happened. But I can try and learn and understand it and go, that's impacted certain other elements of my life where I do give too much, I do think too much, and I do need to set better boundaries. And everyone will have their own little path, their own little stories that they've taken, where they could probably, if they sat and thought and go, there's maybe a boundary that I could put in here that would actually just ease it off a bit for me.
mm.
Just turn that little stress tap or whatever it is that you want to call it, just turn it off a little bit. Not answering an email from a boss after a certain time, or turning your phone off on an evening when you're sitting with your partner, or putting it on mute and not focusing on your friends, focusing on whatever it is, just those little moments of presence could
Yeah.
make a real difference, I think.
And it's taking responsibility, isn't it? But it's what what I'm feeling with what you're saying there is that if we can look back at our life with a more compassionate way, more of a higher perspective. So like you've just done, you understand, why you have this empathy, why you have a tendency to put people's needs first, because, that's a very classic way of the older child has to take on the responsibility for the well-being of their siblings. And then especially even when they're 2 years old, it can happen. It's so
Mm.
ingrained. That's quite common, and I've seen that with my clients as well, where they've taken on too much responsibility, and actually you can see it in their hips in their back, because they're loading, having to hold that all that support. They're taking on too much, or not feeling supported. So it's that balance, which I see in the skeletal system. It's interesting you said about, I know the back injury is from a car accident, but it's but how you can actually see it from a different perspective. And when you do the work that you do, you can see the blessing, you can see the gift that
Mm.
it's created for you to be able to bring into your work. But it's being able to see it.
I mean, going back to what you just said about the back injury, and there is no doubt in my mind that the back injury and my mental health are intrinsically linked.
Mm,
Absolutely no two ways about it. My back's taking longer to get better. That affects my mental health. My mental health is taking longer to get better. So my body is tense and my back's not healing. There's a link between them both. And uh, I think that people that try and focus on one or the other, why? Why not have a more wholesale approach to things? Because people are talking about go out for a walk, it'll help your mental health. Well, what's a walk? Physical exercise. So physical exercise and mental health, people are saying that it's linked, but they use it under the guise of well-being by going out and getting some fresh air and looking at the way the leaves are moving and on the trees and all this, like taking your mind off things. Your brain's a muscle. You're training a muscle just the same as you would down at the gym. So
mm.
yeah, they're massively linked in my view.
Oh,
It's
completely. I mean,
just
I come from a fascial perspective, so myofascial, not facial. people, everyone thinks you should have a facial. No, it's the fascias. It's the connective tissue, literally from those primitive cells. When we're born from the ovum, how it then divides. So we aren't Lego pieces, little Lego men that have had bits attached to us, and we've just suddenly become, here you go, here's the bits of, we all come from one thing. And yeah, so the mind, body, soul, spirit, it's all one. The fact, because if you're not living in purpose, you lose your joy. The fact that you came away from what was giving you joy, suddenly you lost complete purpose and focus and attachment to life. You know, we need to find, I feel that we're all unique and we all have something to share. And when we acknowledge and accept and love that uniqueness and be part of that jigsaw puzzle piece that we all are, we're living in a way that brings us back joy. Like joy is infinite. You do something because it just gives you joy, you get joy back. It's this,
Yeah.
it's just a constant exchange, isn't it? So it's,
And it's free.
yes.
It's a free exchange. It costs you nothing. It
Yes.
costs you nothing to put a smile on someone else's face sometimes.
Yeah.
Just by anyone that's watching this now, just send someone a text or a WhatsApp or a phone call and just, hey, how's it going? Just wanted to say I love you. Imagine the joy that you'd get if you received a random WhatsApp from someone that you might not have spoken to in a couple of months, just saying, just wanted you to know I love you.
Yeah.
Now, I guarantee the first thought in a lot of people's heads might be, oh no, what's up with them? Have they had bad news? Why is that?
Yeah.
Why is saying, just wanted to say I love you,
Why are we
or
set up to think the
you're a great
negative?
mate? Why are
Mm.
you suddenly thinking it's something bad? Because you don't say it enough. Because we
Mm.
don't talk about it enough. We're not
Yeah.
open and transparent enough. So just do that. And I guarantee it'll be brilliant to see what kind of reactions people got from sending those messages out.
I think we all need
Just
to do this now. Whoever's listening, just whoever pops up into your head right now, go
the first
right.
person, be it a
Yeah, first
parent, a
person,
sibling,
send it.
whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. And also, maybe there's somebody that you want. Okay, so I'm feeling someone that you haven't spoken to for a while, and there might be reasons. You might have fallen out, or things might not feel great, and maybe there's just an element, or even just thinking about them, bring in an element of forgiveness. Doesn't mean just something happened, accepted. Something we talk about forgiveness is like forgiving something, and it's okay to do that. It's not. It's forgiveness is the energy that you help let yourself become free. That's the difference. And it's interesting. We're going to talk again. Maybe we'll just keep going, and then but we were talking about grief as an emotion to work through, and we're in autumn. And it's all about showing us as the trees letting go of the leaves. It's about the ability to let go. And in fact, that card was just that, wasn't it? The ability to let go and cut cords. Maybe there's something we need to, if that person that comes into your mind, maybe there's something we just need to let go of. That hurt, that betrayal, whatever it is, how can you just move through that grief of that loss?
I mean, one of the features on WhatsApp, and I think you can also do it on text messages as well, is you can actually message yourself. So
Can
your
you?
phone number comes up. Yeah. So you can use
Yes.
it for like notes and things like
Yeah.
that. But one of the things that I sometimes used to do was actually write a message to someone else, but would send it to myself. And not because I could read it from another person's viewpoint or anything, but because in my head, I'd written a message, I put thought into it, and I'd press send. And I wasn't reliant on their reply. I wasn't worried about whether they'd seen it or heard it. It mattered not. And then, depending on how I felt, I might have copied and pasted it and then sent it to them in real life. Or I might have turned around and gone, actually, it was good to get off my chest, but I don't need to actually send it to them like that or whatever. So there's little things that you can do to open lines of communication, which is I just cannot stress enough how important it is
I know it
on
is.
every level.
It's really important, and I think the communication is with yourself first, isn't it? Start talking to yourself differently, and rather than the negative voice that sits there you know, that I've done this for myself a lot, is try and create like a separation from that negative voice, to give it like a color or entity, or even like make out it's a, you know, it's a friend, somebody that's hanging around you a lot. And when you can separate that voice and you start to picture it as something else or somebody else, you know, the amount of shit that voice tells you, you wouldn't have them around in your life very long, wouldn't you? You'd be looking at thinking, what
Oh,
the hell are you talking? Like you were saying, what facts and thoughts, the thoughts make it feel like fact, don't they? Because they're
yeah.
so inanimate. But if you separated that and thinking, my God, you're just talking shit. You could probably hopefully break that pattern.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone a couple of weeks ago who'd started a new job, and they'd been doing it for a month or so, and saying, I'm really struggling with it. I'm useless. I'm not at the standard that I should be at with it. Blah blah blah. Very, very negative. And so I said to them, well, what about if you were managing someone else and they'd come in after a month and were saying this? What would you say to them? Well, it's only been a month and you've still got plenty of time. And da, da, da. So why aren't you saying that to yourself? Well, oh, I don't know. Because you're naturally you're your own worst critic a lot of the time, because you know what you're capable of. And if you're not achieving that level, then it feels like a failure. But it's not a failure, it's a process. And people are so, I blame Amazon, right? I blame
I
Amazon
blame Amazon
first.
for a lot. What are you going to come up with, Russell?
Right, bear with me on this one. When I was growing up, Sunday, was it Sunday evenings that used to do points of view or whatever, where people used to be able to complain about something that they'd seen on TV.
Oh,
And
yes. Yeah.
was it Anne Robinson or someone used to? I don't
Yes, I
know.
think it was. Yes. Yeah.
But you'd see something on a Monday. Oh, that really riles me up. Right. Tomorrow I'm gonna write a letter. Then I'm gonna go to the post office and buy a stamp. Then I'm gonna post it. And then in 2 weeks' time, it's gonna get read out on points of view or whatever. So there was a natural delay between something happening and your vent coming out. Now everything's instant. Okay. You send a tweet, you send this, whatever. But people are so used to not just being able to vent, but being able to get. Okay. All of a sudden, my laptop breaks. I can go on my phone, I can order a new one, and it'll be here tomorrow morning. I get what I want straight away. There is no patience anymore. I want something, I need it, I get it. I go to Amazon. I need validation. I send a tweet, I get likes on it. I need whatever it is, I can get it straight. I need information, I can get it straight away. Now. And one of the hardest things that I learned was patience with myself. Okay. Not
Oh, yes.
That is such a hard skill, because I wanted to fix. Right. I've identified a problem. I'm a bloke. This is what we do. We problem solve anyway. So, right, this is my problem. What's my solution? Come on, tell me. Well, you need 12 weeks of counseling. Yeah, but what can I do now?
Mm.
Well, no, you need the counseling and maybe go on this course as well. Right. Well, how long's the wait for that course? Well, it's this. No. And changing that mindset of going, right, where was I yesterday? Where am I today? Where do I want to be tomorrow? And those small little snapshot changes actually make a big difference. And if I look back now to where I was 18, 19 months ago, standing on the edge of that cliff, to now talking about trying to empower other people, if you'd have asked me that back then, who are you going to help? I went, I'm helping everyone right now by not being here.
That's so sad.
And now, but it was a genuine belief as well. I
I know.
genuinely believed that. And now I genuinely believe that I can help people by being here. I've still got my demons. I still fight things all the time. I'm far from perfect. But
No one is.
understand it's not instant. forget the Amazon thing of you can get whatever you want straight away. Okay. Doesn't work like that. It took you years and years and years to get to where you are now. So I'm not saying that if it took you 30 years to get to where you are, it's going to take you 30 years to snap out of it. But you've got 30 years of learned behavior to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it might take 6 months, it might take 6 years. But however old you are now, in 6 years' time, would you think where you could be if you just took these little steps?
Yeah. And I think that's the overwhelm, isn't it? Because sometimes we just don't see how it's going to be there. And it is that trust, it is that patience, it is that surrender to you. And for me, the words are really powerful, like I choose. So when I've been on the floor, just self-sabotage, just wanting the world to just suck me, take me down, the words I would say was, I choose love, I choose joy, and I choose peace. So like, I don't want this anymore. And then the next one was, I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of joy and I'm worthy of peace. Often that's where we get a little bit stuck, because that's like, no, I'm not, because something will be coming up telling you not worthy. And then I am love and I am joy and I am peace. And I can remember after 5 minutes standing up going, well, what the fuck was that all about? Literally have gone from like, I just want to die, this is just too much, to going, I don't understand what happened now, but I feel so much better now. And it's like, that's the power of
And
words.
one of the books that I read that helped a lot was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse
Mm-hmm.
by Charlie Mackesy. I don't know if you've read it yourself or not, but it is brilliant. And it's basically a guy who's gone through his own mental health problems and his own journey. And he's done effectively cartoons, caricatures. He's made a film, I think it was on BBC iPlayer.
Mm.
You can watch it on there. But one of the ones that really resonated with me was the boy talking to the horse. And he's faced with a big forest in front of him. And the boy saying, I can't see the way through. I don't know where to go from here. And the horse says, can you see your next step? The boy goes, well, yeah. And the horse goes, well, just take that.
Mm.
And that is something that I've held quite dear when I can't find a way forward. And it's good to have a long-term vision, but sometimes just taking that step, and you take one step a day, and in 7 days, you're 7 steps further on than you were a week ago. And it doesn't have to be great changes, but it's progress. And I think that's where people struggle. They want that instant. They want to be 7 steps ahead now.
Mm.
But having the acceptance of, okay, I'm just going to take that next step. And then tomorrow, I'm going to take another step, and so on. It builds momentum. It builds change. And you're fighting years and years of change that's been built into you. It's going to take a while to
I'm
change it
fine.
back out.
Yeah, like you say, it's the learning of the unlearning or the unlearning of the learning. And it's but interesting, that concept, that impatience to want to get better has probably what has driven you into it in the first place, that constant need, quick move, that and what I see is because we've become so detached from Earth. We've become so detached from what we naturally are. We've got all this wonderful technology. We've got light. I blame the Industrial Revolution personally. I blame the fact that we've got electric and light, because whereas before we would have been with the sun, we would have been the moon, we would have been with the seasons, we would have lived the land, we would have been respectful of the land, we would have eaten healthily, we wouldn't have all these pesticides, and we'd have lived in season. And we have become so detached from Earth and the natural rhythms, the natural cycles. I mean, we walk around on concrete with rubber shoes. We're not grounding. If you go and get your feet on the earth for 5 minutes, you will find that you will naturally have all these free electrons, because the earth's naturally negatively charged. All of a sudden, we'll feel so much better just by getting our feet on the ground. They've even shown that blood or finds its integrity rather than clotting actually improves after just a few minutes standing on the ground. And we need to stop being so busy. It's been so pushed into us and driven us that we have to do now, and it's now, and it's that's overwhelm. That's just, we're not meant to be that. You wouldn't plant a seed in spring and expect 2 days later it's grown a sunflower or your vegetable. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's important for, certainly from my perspective as a bloke, I know a lot of my friends would listen to what you just said and gone, what? Being in touch with Mother Nature? What kind of mumbo jumbo is that? So I'd reinforce what you're saying by, okay, think practically. How nice does it feel when you're on holiday and you're walking down to the beach, you take your flip flops off and you walk in the sand, and you feel the sand, and then you go down to the sea and you just feel the waves lapping over your feet, and the sand does that weird sinking thing where when the wave comes and your feet just sink into the ground a bit more.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that feels nice. All right. What's it feel like after you've been playing football and you've been injured or whatever? You come off, you're taking your boots off, you're taking your socks off, and you're just walking back to the clubhouse, but you're walking on grass. Yeah, it does feel quite nice. It's a bit tickly, isn't it? You know, where the grass goes. Okay. So these are nice emotions that you're feeling through, the term you used is grounding with earth, I think. Now, I'm not saying go out and start hugging trees and kissing the ground and all that long, but focus on those little things maybe, and just, you know what, the weather's quite nice. I'm going outside for a cig or whatever it is, or I'm going to go pick up some kids' toys. I'm just going to do it barefoot. I'm not putting my flip-flops on because it's wet outside. I'm just going to walk out barefoot and embrace that little feeling for a minute, because that's also mindfulness.
Exactly. And it's things like cold water swimming and all these different things that become much more fashionable, as it were. It's really important because it's getting you into your body. It's getting you in connection with that natural healing energy that's around us. I mean, I know it's, like you say, it could sound like it's woo-woo and a bit things, but astronauts would actually they were getting sick. So they had to put these patches with the Schumann's resonance, actually 7.8 hertz, I think it is, on their spacesuits. So they would still in the frequency of Earth going through their bodies, otherwise they'd get sick. So, it's really important that we reconnect to this natural healing abundance that's around us. And then, like I say, there's many things that we can be doing, but that is one really accessible little step.
Yeah. I mean, I remember certainly during the summer months, laying in the back garden, really depressed, really sad. But I just laid on the grass and looking at clouds. And after a while, my head started to clear just that little bit. Something's tickling me. Oh, it's a little bug. There's blades of grass. Oh, I need to, whatever it is, just these little things can help almost just snap you out of a mindset that you're in. People sometimes use elastic bands, don't they, on their wrists to try and retrain themselves whenever they're thinking something that shouldn't. You snap the rubber band a few times and it stimulates you to think of something else. If you can get talking, if you had a load of people that were actually openly talking about it, the stigma isn't there. And you don't even have to talk about, I walked in the garden last night. You could just say, you know what, I was feeling really down, and when I went outside, it really grounded me for a bit. And I bet a lot of blokes would resonate with it.
Yeah, and I think this is the key. I think it's so, when things are seen as woo or out there, or it's actually detaching them from what actually is naturally right for them and for all of us. But this is the bravado, the stigma of what I would class as toxic masculinity, which I think we're going to have a talk about this at another time. So it's about not being in that that feminine, that connection to earth. It's, you have to be a certain way to be a male, and if you're not that, then you're not male, you're not strong. And it's breaking down those real toxic patterning that people have created for men to think they've got to be, and they're not. And if
it's horrendous.
it's disgusting. I had a client, and he did kidney failure, brain hemorrhage, all because he wasn't able to express his emotions, to communicate it. And then when I thought about that for my children, my two boys, imagine me putting that on my children, saying, you can't cry, man up. And it hurt. It really hurt me to think of my children thinking that way. And it made me hurt thinking of the men that feel that way. It's painful to think that that's what they will feel.
Every day. Every day. And it's a really, really deep topic, the toxic masculinity, so I won't get into it too much now. But I think that the term toxic masculinity is used a lot by women to describe men, and yet it almost feels counterintuitive sometimes that these same women, when they're asked to do certain jobs that are male-orientated jobs, will say, no, we don't want to do that. Climbing the skyscrapers to build all the tower blocks, or going into the sewers and cleaning the sewers. I'm not saying that women don't climb skyscrapers, but there are certain expectations on men to be able to perform certain roles within society. And you cannot negate or get rid of toxic masculinity unless you change the roles for everybody to be able to do it. And that won't happen. So it's about managing expectations a lot with it, on what you expect to get from toxic masculinity or from femininity. Because women are women, men are men. We're both good at different things.
Yeah.
Can we not just embrace the fact that we're good in different roles? Do we have to be completely identical in every area?
We're not meant to be. This is the thing. I don't know who I was having a conversation with the other day, and it was just literally, it's equality. It's about equal standing, but in our own way. And the gifts that women generally have a tendency to be more one way, and men another. But then we have masculinity and femininity in male and female. So it's, all we're really seeking is us being equal and finding our place and space by being our true self, our unique self. And when I see, like you say, there's toxic masculinity that could be seen a different way. And from my perspective, is how men are told that how they've got to be, that they can't have that femininity. It's weak. And which creates the toxic masculine that's abusive and aggressive, because they're not holding on to their femininity and that empathy of being a human.
And also being told that you are masculine is toxic.
Yes, to be ashamed to be
why is being masculine referred to as being toxic? It's not toxic to be a man, far from it, but terminology that gets used to describe certain things has detrimental effects because the communication is poor. Why did I say poor?
I love it.
I don't know why it came out like that.
Yeah.
But the communication's poor. So yes, it's all well and good saying don't have toxic masculinity, but until you start looking at what masculinity actually is for each individual person, because there's varying levels of masculinity, at what point does it become toxic? Who's to say that somebody who is serving in the armed forces and has to have a certain level of mindset to be able to do it would be viewed by many as toxic, that it suffers from toxic masculinity? But in order to do the job that they are being asked to do and to survive doing that job, they've got to have a certain mindset. So maybe there needs to be more understanding around it rather than just using these encompassing phrases that actually could be more detrimental than good a lot of the
Mm.
time. And is there a term for when you're too feminine?
Who's the judge? Who's too feminine? I mean, we're going to talk about
Well, is there a term for it? Toxic femininity? I've
toxic
never heard that.
femininity. There will be. If there's one for masculinity, there will be for feminine as well. So, I mean, for me, there
But you've
isn't a
never
term
heard,
yet.
you
We can
can't,
create it now.
we haven't heard of it, have we? We haven't heard of it, but
No.
I would argue that most people have heard of toxic masculinity.
Mm.
So if you wanted equality, then surely the equality would be there are extremes in both sexes that need to be managed and understood and appreciated to bring it level and equal. But
You're just, all I'm seeing right now is that yin and the yang, and you will have the exchanges of both. So we've got the positive, the negative, the feminine, the masculine, the female, the male. We have to get out of the conversation sometimes of like just it's male and it's female. Actually, women have masculine, they also have feminine. And and sometimes women are too much in their masculinity, which burns out their femininity because they're trying to be too masculine to fit in the world, but then they're not being true to themselves, so they become sick. So yeah, there from how I see it, you've got when we talk about toxic masculinity, it's when it comes to control. So people trying to control from an abusive way. So because men generally have a physical strength. And when I say it's a strength, it should be seen as a strength, as a gift to be honored and not to be used or abused. From a feminine perspective, they are more what I call as the protector of the heart. They can actually, through their power, can heal a man's heart. That is the feminine, it's the healing of the heart. And so that femininity within you can have the ability to heal your heart. But it can equally be manipulated and controlled if they want to control somebody. So the masculine control is very obvious, it's in your face. The feminine control is manipulation. That's the shadow.
yeah,
And that's not easily seen because it's in the shadows. So yeah, there is feminine
but
toxicity.
they complement each other well. And there's the old saying, behind every great man is a great woman, because the woman might be there pulling the strings and all this stuff while the man is out there doing X, Y, and Z. So I don't think that it's a bad thing in a lot of ways. I
It's
think as long as it's
perspective. It's
managed and it's
perspective.
understood, and I can respect your feminine wiles and how you are, and you can respect my masculinity, how I am, and there needs to be the understanding of it. I mean, sometimes people will talk about toxic masculinity as, "I very intimate. This man was very intimidating, etc." Yeah, but in policing, right, the lowest level of force that a police officer can use when we were talking is officer presence, just being there. Okay, so somebody's about to steal a Mars bar from supermarket and an officer is standing next to them. That might be enough force to be able to deter them from doing it. It might be that you've actually got to get hands on and pull the hand away. It might be that you have to escalate, so on and so forth. So just being present is a use of force.
Sorry, a minute.
Now, imagine.
Dog's barking. She'll shut up in a minute. Sorry.
So now imagine that a man standing really close, 6'2", bearded bloke like me, standing really close to a 5'4", 5'5", smaller woman. How would that be? I'm not doing anything. I can't change how tall I am. I could shave my beard off maybe, but that's part of me, so why should I have to? But that could be viewed as intimidating. Now, I need to, as a man, understand that and react accordingly, just the same as the woman needs to understand, or the female needs to understand, that I'm just standing there. I'm not doing anything apart from being me in that position. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication, misinformation surrounding masculinity and femininity in a lot of scenarios that causes a lot of issues, and it makes men not want to be men a lot of the time and shy away from it. And that builds levels of resentment, that builds levels of mental health problems as well. A lot of the time they can't talk about things.
It's the shame of being a male. I've had that with a client before, and I'm like, I can feel that they're holding shame for being a man, because they may well have had a mother that kind of always, said men are this or men are that, and always the negative. You don't know what has made them pursue that, but also society. And the fact that you're just stood there, it comes down to the perception of that woman, of what wounded she might have, to think men might he has the ability to hurt me, but is he? And in fact, he also has the ability to protect me. So
Fact versus thought.
what is it? What is your wounding that has you believe that is? I mean, that is going to be the situation, and this is what I'm saying. Us women have to do our masculine wounds. Yes, humanity has abused females for a very long time, for thousands of years, and actually epigenetically we can feel that as females, through as it gets carried down. There is science really showing that. That's not just me being a bit la, but it's kind of, we carry the wounds of our mothers, and so there is that within us. Even if it's been in our own experiences, we have it in our blood and our subconscious mind and unconscious body, so we can perceive something. So we need to do our own wounding to heal that, to be able to trust men, the male, and then that enables the man to step up into his power and his strength. And then it's for us then to be able to soften and allow the man to hold. It's like the rose and the stem, neither can exist without the other. And we need to start doing this learning and not stereotyping things, because like I say, we're masculine and feminine in both in us. That has us. It's like the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system.
And it's interesting what you were saying about people having to do their own healing as well, because I read an article the other day about, it was called the SCAR experiment, which I found really, really interesting, where they got a selection of people to come in under the premise of going for a job interview. And when they turned up in the waiting room, they said, actually, what we're going to do is we're investigating how people are viewed with certain disabilities and disfigurements. So we're going to put a prosthetic scar on your face somewhere. All right, okay, that's fine. So they had these prosthetic scars. They waited around, they saw it in the mirror. And then just before they were about to go in, excuse me, they said, right, we're just going to touch it up a bit. And they took it off. They then sent these people into the interviews without knowing that the scar had been removed. They were then asked to give feedback afterwards about how the interview had gone. And the feedback that they were given was along the lines of, the interviewer couldn't stop staring at my scar. They made specific comments about my scar, which made me feel uncomfortable. And they didn't have a scar.
Wow.
Their scar was, in effect,
in the head,
inside them. But they projected that, and they'd taken words or phrases that were completely and utterly neutral, professional, whatever it might be, and their perspective had shifted on it to justify their own mindset about something. Now, if you take that with femininity, masculinity, racism, whatever topic it is that you want to do, there's got to be some self-healing done, because not a lot of the time, there has to be times when things are misconstrued because of your interpretation of it, because you haven't opened up to the possibility of something else. And it's a hard one. It's a really tough one. But when they're doing experiments like this and it's showing this, there's a whole world of change, a whole raft of change needed out there.
We're looking at our world with our own wounds, and the brain has a very good idea that when it has a belief system, it will seek confirmation of that belief system. So we will see things how we think it, to have confirmation of what we're believing.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, constantly. That's what the body's, and that's why we, to break out of those patterns can take sometimes unfortunate, like you met that day on the cliff, that moment of literally going, no more. And sometimes it, hopefully it won't, for others it won't come to that, but it's sometimes it's those moments to just see and wake up.
And social media is horrendous for confirmation bias, because there was an example not so long back that I saw where a woman had seen a reel, and I think it was something along the lines of a man and a woman arguing. And she read the comments underneath, and they were all very much women going, the man needs to do this, the man needs to blah, 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 blah. And so she sent it to her husband, who was sitting next to her on the sofa. He watches the reel, and he then reads the comments. But the comments had been changed to suit his browsing history and all this stuff. So the comments that he was seeing was, the woman needs to do this, blah, 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 blah. And he's going, well, yeah, I agree with that. And the woman's going, hold on, what? And they looked, and they had the same reel, and the same top comments were different for
That
targeted
person.
towards her or targeted towards him, because it's all about data collection and all this stuff. So where's the truth?
But
Where is
what
the
that
truth?
is doing, it's division, it's separation. And this is,
And it's confirmation bias.
yes.
Everybody else is thinking exactly what I'm thinking when I see this.
So I'm okay to think this way.
So I'm okay to think this way. And like, you start then introducing that into things like your toxic masculinity or your femininity or whatever it is. And how much are you actually being manipulated by social media and other people, and how much is a genuine thing? And until you start speaking to people and you start engaging with them, you're probably not going to know, because people are so quick to get their information from unverified sources or whatever it might be. And confirmation bias is a massive thing, because they don't want to feel alone. They want to feel
Which is the
part of a
amygdala,
community.
which is part of our primal part of feeling that we need safety in numbers, and that
Which
community.
leads us right back to the
Fear
start of what
rejection.
we were saying. Leads us right back to the start of what we were saying about people need to realize that they're not alone with their thoughts and how they're feeling, and that there are actually other people out there. It's just about having that true connection with people, not a manipulated one by Meta or whatever it
If
is.
social media is playing on the primal aspect of us, the fear of being alone, which is what we are, which is what I said about we're not meant to be self-sufficient, we're supposed to be a community. It's playing on that primal fear of being alone, but making us think certain ways that separate us to then feel alone. It's really fucking us up. It's probably the simplest way to say it. It's playing with our minds, it's playing with us, and it's separating us, even though we're thinking we're a community, we're socializing. It's not. That's the
It is.
toxicity. That is, yeah.
And that becomes ingrained, because you watch something and you might read some of the comments, and it just reinforces things subconsciously a lot of the time. Oh yeah, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. And then I sound like I spend all my time on Instagram watching reels or whatever, but
We can do it.
I
Don't
love
worry.
I love
Don't feel
watching
ashamed.
I love watching the educational ones and
Yeah.
the psychological ones. And there was another one that was shown where it was a really tall, muscular man and a really short woman, and they were filmed having an argument in the street. And in the first clip, the man was standing over the woman. He was being really aggressive. He was the aggressor in the situation. And so many people stepped in. So many people, listen, leave her alone, not with it, blah, 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 move away, try to break it up. When it was flipped and it was the woman who was the aggressor toward the men, people were walking past and they were laughing. They were getting their phones out and filming it. Nobody interjected, nobody intervened. A big 6'6" bloke with a 5 woman who was aggressively slapping him, punching him, kicking him, screaming at him, this, that, and the other. That was amusing. Oh, look at him. He's not able to handle himself. He's not able to control himself. Look how weak he must be. All this kind of stuff crept in. So you talk about toxic masculinity. Where does that come from? Is it the men, or is it also facilitated by society as a whole going, women are just as fueling it as men can be? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, well, that's just because he could physically stand up to her, emotionally, he has been so manipulated and controlled by that feminine to feel that he's not able to. And why?
But it was more as well the reaction of the people walking past.
Yeah.
Because in both scenarios, it was the same couple.
It's feeding itself.
They were just acting. It's how people react to it, and what is socially acceptable and what isn't socially acceptable. And the fact it was socially acceptable, almost entertaining for the woman to be the aggressor, whereas as soon as it was the man, that's socially not acceptable, and people were stepping in.
And it was feeding, like the laughter was like feeding the weakness and the shame. Oh yeah, society and everything has. Oh God, I can't even think of a word, but we need to start becoming conscious of it, and we need to start unpicking it and going, okay, that isn't acceptable, and that doesn't feel truth. Is it fear or is it love? What was going? We need to really. It's not black and white. This is the thing. Everything seems that everything's black and white. There's a paradox with stuff, and for them both to exist, either one needs to exist, like the negative and the positive, but we need to start having these conversations and start calling it out. And this is why I've set up the Voice podcast, is the voice of integrity and compassion and empathy. When we can start looking at things from a very compassionate and empathetic way without coming in very judgmental and shaming, and that kind of just puts things back in the shadows. We even need to call out the toxic behaviors, male and female, without necessarily, if we can somehow hold about the emotional response and hold a space that can kind of go, okay, that isn't acceptable behavior, or that viewpoint isn't. How, what is that coming from? Is it coming from a fear bias, or is it coming from an intellectual higher kind of basis? So we need to start having the conversations rather than shaming people just to shut up. And we need to be able to hold space to have those awkward conversations, to not fear the judgment and the persecution. And
which again comes back to improving communication between people, because you've got not just what you're saying, but you've got the active listening part where people are listening to what you're saying. There's so many times you're in an argument with someone and you're not listening to what they're saying. You're listening for points that you can pull apart. And if partway through their argument they say something, you go, oh, I know that that's not true. That's all that you're thinking about. And you're thinking about your response and not what else they're talking about. And as soon as there's a gap, that's when you come back and you go back to something. That's not communication. Okay. Communication works
you're
both
listening
ways.
to your own wounds. They're just literally mirroring your wounds, and you just come back from a wounded space. It's how we can be wounded, yet how can we not respond in a wounded way? So we can oh, I can feel that, but it's not my truth. How can I move through those wounds? And you can't do that when you're overwhelmed and not creating space for yourself.
You can, and it's the understanding of biases as well. Because if I walk down the street and I see a load of football fans outside on the pavement, and as I walk past them, one of the football fans, I don't know, Man United, because Leeds don't like Man United, right? One of these football fans punches me in the face for no reason whatsoever. The following week, I'm walking down the street and there's a load of Liverpool fans there. I've then got two choices. Do I treat every football fan the same and cross over the road and walk on the other side and then cross back? Or do I think, no, not every person's the same? And it was, out of the group of 30 football fans, it was one individual within that group of 30 that was the issue.
Mm.
I would hazard a guess that 9 times out of 10, people are going to cross that road. And they're going to, it doesn't matter whether you're Liverpool fans, it doesn't matter whether you're Man United fans, it doesn't matter whether that same person, that one person was there. I have now a bias against those people through my lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really simplistic way of looking at it, because everybody's going to have it. It's who you, it's how you are. No issues with that. Embrace it. You know, it's made you who you are, this beautiful, unique, fantastic person that you are today. But understand that you have the bias. Everybody's got bias. Bias seems like such a bad word, but it's not. Everybody's got it. So understand it. And if you're making that decision consciously by going, I know it's not everyone, but I'm going to be risk averse and I'm actually going to cross just on the off chance, but I'm going to smile and I'm going to wave at them when I go past. Brilliant. You've learned from something that's happened, but you're not treating everyone negatively as a result of that.
Mm.
Or no, actually, no, it was one person. I'm going to still carry on the same footpath. Great. And if you get punched in the face again, reassess it. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe these football fans are how you did it, and it reinforces your bias, which is fine. Okay. But it's understanding that. And we're all human. We're all different. Having that bit of empathy and that bit of understanding and not letting your biases impact too much means that you can appreciate people. You can understand. Like, I was about to go on to freedom of speech then, which is a whole other...
We're just covering everything.
I know, because freedom of speech is one of my big bugbears. Dealing with public order incidents in the police all the time. You know, somebody saying something that, and I am fair and impartial and completely and utterly on the fence as a police officer when it comes to it. But somebody says something that somebody else dislikes, yet it's not criminal, it's not swearing or whatever. It's just a really different viewpoint. Let's say a really negative viewpoint, or not negative. Somebody saying, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to burn in hell, and so are your children.
Okay, so that is probing.
Okay, somebody else takes offense to that. They're saying that my children, okay, it's freedom of speech. They're not, just the same as you can say, I'm not going to burn in hell for not believing in Jesus. Somebody else might go, you are going to burn in hell. That's fine. Have your differences of opinion, but understand that it's two different people with two different opinions. That's allowed. If you don't want freedom of speech and you don't want this person to be able to say, you're going to burn in hell, you can't say anything against it either. You can't speak up without the fear of the police arresting you for having an opinion yourself, because you take away freedom of speech. What's good for one has to be good for the other. And I think that that is quite often lost with people, that they call it their truth. My truth is more important than your truth. No, it's not. It's just different.
Yeah,
and
this is where we have to come to a point of diversity, but held in a space of love. So we can actually go, okay, they're entitled to their opinion. It doesn't mean that it's true, doesn't mean it's not. Whereas fear is separation. And we just have to come back to our I mean, we generally, people get offended. It's what happens. You know, but who's at fault with that? Or not even fault. Let's not even put fault in it, because fault gives like a shame to it. Whose responsibility is for your feelings? You've made me feel like that. Well, that's my responsibility. My feelings. How do I work through those those feelings and those emotions. And
Offense
yeah,
is never given, it's only received.
exactly. It's like the saying of like when you holding a coffee cup and somebody bumps into you and you spill the coffee. Who spilled the coffee? Well, you did. You were holding the coffee. Yes, somebody bumped into you, but it's still you that spilt it. So it's kind of like take responsibility for your actions. And actually, this goes right back to how I see health, how we are in the workplace, how we are in our relationships. It's all about taking responsibility of yourself. And you can
Mm.
only do that when you become conscious and more aware and do the work of self-reflection. And
But how empowering would it be to not be offended by people, to not let all these external factors, not just offense, but anything, all these external factors not impact your life, your heart, your soul. That you could walk down the street and things just brush off your shoulders or not drag you down, opinions, all this stuff. Wouldn't you have an extra spring in your step? Wouldn't you be a lot happier by being true to yourself and understanding other people? Understand? Yeah. Personally, I think they're an idiot for what they're saying, but whatever.
does it
And
matter? Am
off
I
you
going to
go.
let my energy pour into that person because I don't like them? Or you are like responsible for your energy, so, and your thoughts are like where your energy goes. So if you're again attached to something you don't like, then you're just draining yourself, and in
I've
fact
got a
you're
colleague at
feeding.
work, and they always. I've got a colleague at work, and they always criticise me, and it's really dragging me down. It's really. Do I value their opinion? Well, no. They're my peer. They're my equal. They're not my boss. My boss says that I'm doing a good job. All right, fine. You know what? I'm going to take it with a pinch of salt. What you say. I'm taking ownership.
Of
Okay.
how I
I'm
feel.
not letting. I'm not letting you impact me. So
Mhm.
next time they say something negative, okay, thanks for your feedback. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Wow. So I'm coming home then after a day at work. How's your day at work been? Yeah, it's been all right. Actually, I got really positive feedback from my boss, or managed to complete the work, or whatever it is, as opposed to how's your day been? So and so's at it again, trying to drag me down, and it was making me feel really bad. And I don't want to go into work tomorrow because of how they're making me feel. And this, take
Mm.
that power away from them.
Yeah.
Why do they have the power over you? Why can't you have the power over yourself?
Yeah, and this is the victim perpetrator martyr cycle that's coming up, which is like in so many aspects of our being, where we see it individually, where we see it at work, where we see it in relationships, we're seeing it in the big wide world with war. These cycles that keep repeating, they keep going backwards and forwards, and like you've probably seen in your field, is that actually often the perpetrators have been a victim at one point. Some point we have to break that pattern and
Well,
become sovereign.
in policing, you used to see it all the time, where
Mm.
the roles would actually change. So, for argument's sake, a domestic incident is reported, and we turn up. You've got a victim and you've got a suspect. Matters not whether they're male or female or whatever, just victim, suspect. And so you've got your victim, you've got your suspect. We are also effectively the savior, the hero, whatever you want to call us. And the decision is made to then arrest the suspect. But the victim doesn't want the suspect arrested. So the victim then tries to become the savior, the hero. No, don't arrest them, don't arrest them. Please don't take them away. No, I'll take it all back. I'm not going to make a complaint. The suspect, the original suspect, then becomes the victim.
Mm.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. Please don't. And the officer, who was originally the savior, the hero, then becomes the perpetrator, the suspect of, no, actually, I'm going to do something that nobody wants you to. And it's
Mm.
fluid and it changes, but it changes in workplace environments. It changes in your home life as well. You know, your partner having an argument, your kid might come in and say, stop arguing. All of a sudden the kid's the savior, but then the kid does something, and it all changes and shifts. And it's about just understanding how that works and giving yourself that power back. Like, just
Yeah,
take the power.
that's what I'm seeing in everything is about sovereignty. We're moving through this huge transition of where we've given our power away. We've given it away in governance. I won't get that started because that's that'd be never several hours on that one. But in terms of how we are given away so much of our power, and it's been through religion, it's been through health, you know, and we need to start claiming that back. And it's this inner sovereignty and that inner power, and that comes from consciousness. It comes from being aware of self, and, you know, recognizing when wounds have come up. Okay, there's a wounding to be healed. So yes, we don't necessarily walk around the whole entire life not being affected, because we'll have wounds to be healed, but then we heal them and then that doesn't affect us. You know, so that scarring is healed, but there might be another one. But then there might be something that suddenly gets us like really passionate about something. And you think, fuck, I don't want that happening anymore. There's got something burning deep in my groin, in my heart. There's passion that I want to make a change. And then that can be like the passion, the drive that gives you purpose, that gives you that flame in life. So it's, yeah, but you can only, no one can, you and I cannot say this is that and that's happening to you. However, when you become aware and conscious of things and how things are there to reflect, to let go, they're not your patterns, and you can start creating different neural plasticity to make different changes. You have this ability to just take ownership and be empowered in all forms of your life. But you've got, it's that initial waking up, isn't it? Is that breaking that pattern.
It is, and it's just understanding that the only person that's got the power to change you is you.
Yeah.
There are people out there to help and guide and assist and facilitate, but it's you, and you do have the power to do it. So just trust in that, take ownership, take power, and you'd be amazed at where you can go.
Oh, well, I think that's beautiful. And I think just that's where we end, I think, Ken, for now. I think, yeah, the power is in you.
I
So,
think that's a good way.
Yeah. Well, there's a song coming on, but I can't think of what that one is. I've got the power in you. I think it's something my child sung to me, but yeah, I didn't want to belittle what we've just said there. This is when silence comes in and we just hear those words. The power is in you.
Very much so.
Thank you. It's amazing. So thank you for joining me, and
thank you for having me on.
I hope our listeners have hopefully maybe it's just giving them that moment to break that pattern. Thank you.
Here's hoping.
Thanks again, Ken.
Cheers.